Alright, what's up everybody? This is Alex once again with the EOT Newsflash, and welcome to our Modern Horizons Limited and Modern set review. That is right, we're doing a double whammy kind of thing. I've got both monitors filled with notes and card images. It's a magic bonanza up in here. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Tonight we are doing the white and the blue cards, and to give you a quick rundown of how these work, if you haven't watched one of our set reviews before, basically we have a 4-point scale, 1 to 4, 1 being the cards you should probably never ever play in a game of Limited. Your 2s are going to be your more basic filler, 3s are your more premium removal, creatures and things of that nature, and 4s are your absolute bombs that you'll always play and pull you into a color. We also have 2 additional categories, your S, which is our sideboard cards, things you would bring in if your opponent presents you with a problem that you wouldn't normally just make a card for, something like maybe an enchantment or an artifact removal. And then we have your Bs, which are your build around me cards, which are cards that work best once you've got a couple of cards that actually work well around them, so that way they're playing at their full potential. So, a couple quick notes on Modern Horizons. There's a ton of mechanics in this set. There are 40 mechanics altogether in this set. Some of them only showing up on 1 or 2 cards here or there. So it's not like we're going to see, a ton of recurring themes here. So we already looked at a lot of all the draft formats in a previous video. So if you haven't already, go back and check out that to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at here. But we're going to be looking at these cards specifically for limited play, and where viable and relevant, I will say where I think they might see some play in Modern. So, without any further ado, let's get started right off with our first white card. This is Answered Prayers. It's a 1 white enchantment at common. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life, and if Answered Prayers isn't a creature, it becomes a 3/3 angel creature token, or creature with flying in addition to its other types until end of turn. So this is going to go along with that green-white sort of creature fall archetype that we talked about, the great-hearted, good-hearted unicorn, whatever it is. So this is an interesting little card here. It's going to be a decent source of life gain as the game goes on. If you can use some blink effects, you can use this defensively. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to really use this to attack with, as the angel does not have haste, which is really kind of awkward. So if you're able to blink something on the end step, you do get it through your turn, and it's awkward to play with. It's a 1.5 for me. It's not all that impressive. I'm not super impressed by the green-white archetype as creature fall deck. Maybe it's better than I'm giving it credit for, but not all that impressive otherwise. For Modern, however, I do see this being its potential cute tech for Soul Sisters. If your opponent's playing a lot of Wrath of Gods and you just don't want to keep losing your Soul Wardens to that effect, you just stick something like this and just keep playing creatures that keep getting life. So it's got some play there, but nothing all that interesting. Next up, we've got Astral Drift, the upgrade, slight upgrade to Astral Slide. 2 white enchantment at rare. Whenever you cycle Astral Drift or a card or another card with cycle another card, and Astral Drift is on the battlefield, you may exile target creature. If you do, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You can also cycle it for 2 white. Basically, you pay that mana cost, you discard it, and draw a new card. That's cycling. This is a definite build around me for this set. There's only 15 or so cards with cycling actually in the set, and that does include the 5 cycling lands, so the options are relatively limited. Now, there is sort of like this pseudo red-white slide deck that I think might exist along with the red-white sliver deck. Maybe, who knows, but this is definitely a build around me kind of card, because you need so many effects that go along with it to actually make this thing do anything. In Modern, however, you have a ton of viability to create sort of the Astral Slide decks of old, which started out as red-white, moved into Naya colors, so there might be something cool in there, maybe with some Kitchen Finks and some Eternal Witnesses. Astral Drift has a lot of potential to it, and I think it's going to be maybe not a tier 1 deck in Modern, but definitely a cool deck for F&M. Next up, we've got Battle Screech. 2 white sorcery at uncommon, creates 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying, and has flashback that allows you to cast it from the graveyard by paying an alternative cost. And in this case, you tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. you cast a spell from your graveyard, and then you exile if you do that way. So Battle Screeches is just nuts. This was the card that you wanted to open in Tempest Block Remastered drafts on Magic Online a couple years ago. This is a solid 3 for me. It's a great go-wide card. It even has a potential play in Black-White Tokens in Modern as well. Very powerful card. Would love to first pick this and go for a nice go-wide creature aggressive strategy. Next up, we've got Dismantling Blow, 2 and a white at uncommon. It's an instant. It also has a kicker cost, which is 2 and a blue. You may pay an additional 2 and a blue as you cast the spell, and it destroys target artifact or enchantment. And if the spell was kicked, you draw 2 cards. So 6 mana, blow something up, draw 2 cards. This is a sideboard card, plain and simple. There just aren't enough artifacts or enchantments that you'd want to play, that you'd want to main this against. And even then, paying 6 mana to draw 2 extra cards, I don't think is actually worth it. So if your opponent presents you with a really juicy target for it and they're in game 1, maybe bring this in. But I'm not going to be super hyped on going for that kicker cost. Just the 2 and a white makes this thing really expensive. Moving right along, we've got our first Sliver. That's right, Slivers are back. Let's get that on the screen there a little bit better. Yeah, that works. All right. Enduring Sliver, 1 and a white Sliver, uncommon. It's a 2/2, and it has Outlast. Outlast was the ability from the Abzan and Khans of Tarkir block. Allows you to pay 2 generic mana, tap it, and put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Outlast can be activated as a sorcery, and other Slivers you control have Outlast 2. So Sliver Bear on its face, it's a solid 2 for me. It's just a bear. It's going to be one of the backbone commons of the Sliver deck. Make them bigger so they can survive combat into the late game. And that's really about it. As far as modern Slivers go, it's already a deck. It's an Aether Vial-based tempo deck in a sense. We can play things at instant speed with Aether Vial. So there might be a little play to being able to play Outlast Sliver here, but I don't think you're going to want to do that when you actually have real Sliver Lords that just give +1/+1 to all Slivers in play. So maybe not viable there, but possibly. Next up, we've got Ephemerate, which is a single white instant at a common. Exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And then it has Rebound. God, they are just digging into the bucket here. And Rebound says, if you cast a spell from your hand, exile as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this from exile without paying its mana cost. So this is a good spell for the blue-white blink deck. I guess a 1.5 just because you really do need a lot of really good ETB effects to get the full value out of this card. Obviously, this can be blanked by removal on the upkeep, and just can be a little bit underwhelming. I'm not going to be playing too many of these, but a copy or 2 of my blue-white blink deck wouldn't go amiss. Next up, we've got the Face of Divinity, which is a 2 and a white uncommon enchantment aura. Enchants a creature, gives it +2/+2, and as long as another aura is attached to the enchanted creature, it has First Strike and Lifelink. So this effect is pretty overcosted for what you're getting, and there's only a handful of auras in this. I believe there's only 4 actually, so I don't know what the odds are of actually opening enough to make this actually be relevant. The buff is relevant otherwise. I'm not super excited to play this, but you really are unlikely to get the additional bonus. It's a 1.5 for me at that rate, and you might want this for Modern if you're playing Bogles on a really tight budget. Maybe you can't afford Daybreak Coronets, and this is a pretty decent alternative to that, albeit a drastically underpowered one. Next up, we have First Slivers Chosen. 4 and a white creature Sliver at uncommon. It's a 3/3, and Sliver creatures you control have Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn for each instance of Exalted amongst permanents that you control. So, if one creature attacks and you have 4 on the board, they all have Exalted, that's an additional +4/+4. Pretty simple effect right there. This thing is a monster at the top of the curve. If you play this on 5 and you've got a couple of little beaters on the ground, specifically Slivers or Shapeshifters, because Changeling is going to be a huge part of this set. Just already looking at it, I can already tell. You're going to be turning one guy sideways for a ton of damage turn after turn. So in the Sliver deck, the Black-White Changeling deck, this is an absolute monster of a beater. Probably don't want this in Modern Slivers just because it is a go wide deck, and I don't think you'll want to have one big attacker turn after turn, but maybe, who knows. But definitely a monster limited. Gave this one a solid 2.5. Next up, we've got our first of the Force cycle. That's right, we've got ourselves some Force of X. This one is Force of Virtue. 2 white for an enchantment at rare. If it's not your turn, you may exile a white card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. It has flash, and it gives creatures you control +1/+1. So this is a really boring card, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that the flash and the alt cost actually justifies the 2 additional mana when you basically are just giving yourself an Honor of the Pure. Is it as a combat trick? I really don't know. I'm just underwhelmed by this one. I give it a solid 2, and as far as modern play goes, there might be some budget white weenie decks that want to play this, but I do think that Honor of the Pure is just a better effect all around. So underwhelming is starting off the Force cycle here. Next up, we've got Generous Gift. 2 and a white instant uncommon. Destroy target permanent, and its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Sweet. This is an excellent piece of removal here in terms of just getting rid of any pesky permanent, be it an enchantment, a creature, a land, a planeswalker, an artifact. You get where I'm going with this. If you're in white, you'll always play this one. I gave it a solid 3, and as far as modern goes, this is a cool little color bend of Beast Within, and there might be some potential play into different variants of Ponza, those land destruction decks. Maybe even green-white Tron might touch this. Not a high probability of that, but still a pretty cool card nonetheless. Next up, we've got Gilded Light. 1 and a white instant at common. You gain Shroud until the end of turn, and it has cycling for 2. Again, you pay that mana cost, you discard it and draw it. This is pretty underwhelming. It's playable because of the cycling. You know, there's enough effects in the set that target you to do an effect, whether it's a discard or direct damage. If you're really cute, you flash against the opponent who tried to kick a Urza's Rage against you. Doesn't say you counter it, it's just that you can't be targeted anymore. So it's cute, not very playable, but it's definitely interesting. As far as modern goes, I can see this as some fringe anti-storm tech. Maybe if you can't afford those Leylines of Sanctity, this is a cool little alternative to that when they fire off, 42 copies of Grape Shot. Something to think about there. Next up, we've got Giver of Runes. Yes, Mom is back, or maybe it's her stepdaughter or stepmother. I don't know what's going on here. But Giver of Runes is a single white mana, core cleric at rare, 1/2. You can tap her and give another creature you control, not herself, another creature you control, protection from colorless or from the color of your choice until the end of turn. So she's better than Mother of Runes in some ways, and better and not better in some ways. This is as annoying as Mother of Runes is in Legacy. This is going to keep your creature safe from removal, from blocks. Even giving it protection from lands is pretty cool too. Not saying that's going to be an often thing in this limited format, but modern, definitely a thing. And for modern, this is just an auto include into Death and Taxes, maybe even some mono white builds as well. Green-white Value Town might play this one as well. This is a really cool card. I'm really glad that this is a Mother of Runes, because that would have just been a disaster for the format if you ask me. Alright, moving right along, we get ourselves a kitty cat. Oh, that's not a kitty cat. That's a kitty cat and a dog and a ninja and a wizard. It's a changeling. It's a changeling. We've got ourselves Imposter of the Sixth Pride. It's a 1 and a white shapeshifter common changeling. This card is every creature type. Just wrap your head around that. I think last time I checked, someone's going to get me on this in the comments, I already know it, but there are several dozen creature types in this game, and a lot of it's been errated to be a little bit more cohesive. But back, way back when Alpha was still a thing, early sets, everything was a creature type. Mouse, creature type. Cell phone, creature type. Bottled water, creature type. Like, everything was a creature type unto itself. Like, everything had a creature type, that basically was its own thing. It was pretty ridiculous. But the Changeling will actually be a really relevant thing in this set. As it counts for like slivers and ninjas, and there's just a lot of play to it. It can make some really cool combat scenarios and make for some interesting deck building restrictions as well. Maybe not restrictions, but just sort of really breeding creativity there. On the Imposter itself, however, this card is pretty underwhelming. It's a 3/1, and it kills other bears, which, we know how good bears are. We've been in a lot of bear formats recently. 2-mana 2/2 always good. This will occasionally trade up, but more often than not, it's just going to get eaten up by something a lot smaller than itself. Pretty underwhelming. Obviously, being a changeling makes it a lot better. How good that's going to be, not entirely sure, but possibly. Next up, we have the Irregular Cohort, 2 white shapeshifter at common, 2/2, changing again, and whenever this creature enters a battlefield, create a 2/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling. So basically, you pay 4 mana and get 2 of these guys. Call the Cavalry we've seen, which makes the token version of this. This is a very, very playable card. It's great in the blue-white blink deck to get multiple copies of the token it brings along with it. Just solid value, solid playable in any blue and any white deck, especially powerful in the blue-white deck where its stock goes up a little bit more than that. Very cool card. All right, scroll down to the notes here a little bit. All right, next up we are on to King of the Pride, 2 and a white, 2/1 uncommon cat. Other cats you control get +2/+1. So this is a solid 2 for me. It's a solid player in the shapeshifter changeling deck because those are cats. So this card is just, when I first saw this, I really didn't think much about it because there aren't really any other cats in the set. But then I started thinking more about the changelings, and obviously your mind just kind of unravels from there. This is obviously playable. Extra value in that deck, obviously. And just to think about so many creature shenanigans, like this is just part of that. In Modern, this gets kind of cute actually because you have things like Wild Macaddle, Loam Lion, maybe some kind of modern kitty cat deck, Tribal Flame thing. Probably not, but you never know. I've seen stranger things. The 3/3 Lion from Theros, God, I think would be insane in Modern. Indestructible guy, yeah. Anyway, I forget what that card is even called, but that thing gave me fits back in the day. Let's move right along onto Knight of Old Banali, 3 white, common, human knight, 3/3 with suspend 5, and the text is so small to go to the other screen. So suspend 5 and you pay a white. Rather than pay this card from your hand, you may pay a white and exile with 5 time counters on it. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, remove a time counter. When the last is removed, cast it without paying its mana cost, and it has haste. That's pretty cool. And it also has some more text here. Whenever Knight of Old Banali enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. And it's a 3/3. This card actually isn't all that terrible. It's pretty good on both the full value cast and the suspend cost. I think you'd be really more inclined to play this for suspend, as long as you have a hand that can profitably take advantage of the fact that suspend on 1, play a 2, a 3, a 4, and then on turn 5, when this thing would become unsuspended, let's see, turn 6 actually, when this becomes unsuspended, you actually get this plus, whatever bodies you have on board, and the bonus goes off at will with it as well. So it's pretty cool. It's got some flexibility, and I do like that about this. It's a 1.75 for me, just based on that purely alone. Cool flexibility, doesn't really save it. Nothing remarkable here for me, unfortunately. Next up, we've got ourselves some more Slivers. Let's get that up on the screen for you guys so we can see that better. Do you guys get like the little gray dot effect when you look at stuff like this? Like I'm looking at my monitor right now, I see all the little gray dots. It's like an optical illusion thing. That's not my problem. That's your problem. No, it's my problem, not your problem. Gosh, it's been a long week. But Lancer Sliver is a 2 and a white common Sliver, 2/2, and gives other Sliver creatures you control first strike. That's pretty cool. So this is a solid vanilla bear for the Sliver and the Shapeshifter deck. I'm going to keep reminding you guys of that. It's a solid 2.25 for me. Nothing all that fancy to write home about. Modern Slivers, of course, has some application there, but there are cheaper versions of this that it already doesn't play as well. So it's a hard pass, unfortunately, for that as well. But it will make the cut for your red-white aggressive Sliver decks. Next up, we have Martyrs Soul, 2 and a white Spirit Soldier at commons, a 3/2 with Convoke. Your creatures can help cast the spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 generic mana or 1 mana of that creature's color. So you can pay the white by tapping another white creature, obviously. And when Martyrs Soul enters the battlefield, if you control no tapped lands, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So this and Battle Screech just like go hand in hand with each other. Any white creature deck that can take advantage of this is just awesome. This is a very powerful uncommon. Even if you play it for full retail first and you do have those lands that are tapped, casting something like Ephemerate or just having the ability to blink this somehow and have those lands untapped. Really, Ephemerate's the best way to do that. You get the full value of this creature and getting a 5/4. So super powerful card here. I do like this quite a bit. Very powerful beater in a go wide sort of white aggro deck. 2.25 for me. Very cool. Next up, we've got On Thin Ice. I love the flavor of this card. A single white mana gets you a snow enchantment or at rare, enchants a snow land you control. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. When On Thin Ice enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until On Thin Ice leaves the battlefield. Now, before I go any further on this card, I need to make a small PSA about this set. Typically when you draft a set, unless there is a special land in the back, like a Guild Gate or a snow-covered land, you take the basic land out of the pack and you just kind of put it in your pile. Please, for the love of God, do not do this in this set. I don't know how obvious this is. This might be just, duh, Alex, why are you wasting time about talking about this? But it's absolutely going to matter in this set. If you open the pack and instinctively just take the snow-covered land out of the back, put it in your pile, you're actively hurting the draft format because the people who are going to draft this snow deck, as much of a trap as it probably is, it's actively hurting their ability to play their cards. So just a reminder, as soon as you sit down for your first draft, just let everybody know, hey guys, don't forget, leave the land in the pack, kind of like you did with the Guild Gates from Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. You're going to need them. Now, back to On Thin Ice. This is the only white snow permanent, so if you do need those snow basic lands, the plane specifically, you will most likely get them too. So this is a really powerful removal. It does take a little bit of build around me because you do need those snow lands to go with it. And then it starts counting for your snow permanents for your other snow cards. So I got a 2.5 just for how powerful this card actually is. There really isn't any good land destruction in this set. So once you play it, it's mostly going to stick to that creature forever. And maybe some kind of modern snow control deck wants this. I'd be up for that. Next up, we have the Ranger Captain of Yose. This is a 1 white human soldier at Mythic Rare. It is a 3/3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card to convert a mana cost 1 or less. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. You may also sacrifice the captain, and your opponent can't cast non-creature spells this turn. So I actually had to go through this set a couple times just to figure out how many things this can actually grab. And the answer is 7, and those targets aren't actually all that terrible. And the ability to sacrifice itself on a turn where you maybe want to go for a big alpha swing and your opponent has a lot of mana open, it's a good way to make sure that they have to cast their spells right then and there, especially maybe they might be all of a sudden be able to blank some combat specific spells, maybe some combat tricks or things like that. So Ranger Captain has some cool stats here, has an interesting effect, but isn't all that interesting otherwise. It's just a solid 2 for me, but once you look into Modern, this guy goes right into the Modern human deck, although I do have to wonder just how many 3-drops that deck can actually play. Moving on. We've got ourselves probably one of my favorite cards in this set just because of how flexible it is, and this is Recruit the Worthy. This is a single white mana instant common, has buyback 3. Now you may pay an additional 3 generic mana as you cast the spell, and if you do, put this card into your hand as it resolves. So you can kind of chain this together into, basically nigh infinite as long as the mana is there. And this allows you to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Very flexible card in the early game, in the late game. If you want copies of this, you'll most likely be able to get them as this is a common. And this is one of my, like I said, this is a fantastic card. I get a 2.5, which might be too much for it, but I do think it is that powerful to be able to fire from the early game, get some early blocks, and then have extra copies in your hand for the late game, where you pay 4 mana, get a guy, and get this back in your hand. Just really cast it over and over and over. It's a steep cost for 1 mana for 1 creature, but I think the longevity that the game will eventually go to if you built your deck right eventually this card will basically take that game over. So like I said, do not estimate that buyback here. And there's a potential token play here for Modern. Next up we have Repro Bation, 1 and a white enchantment aura at common. Enchants a creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a coward creature. That's right, cowards. I can't recall if there was a set, a non-supplemental set I should say, or that actually mattered. I think it was just a commander thing. Could be wrong. But it loses all of power abilities and is a coward creature with base power and toughness 0/1. It keeps all super types but loses all other types and creature types. So it goofs up with Changeling essentially. This is really powerful stuff here, especially when you've got something massive in your way. There are a handful of big creatures in this set that have very powerful abilities. So being able to basically just turn it into a coward is pretty flexible, very powerful here. And there's actually one card in this set where the coward creature type actually comes in super relevant, aside from just Changelings, but one card in particular that actually references it, but we'll get to that later. The card is cool, I love it, and seeing Avacyn art on there, super neat as well. Next up we have got the Rock's Veteran, 3 and a white for a Rock Rhino Soldier at common. It's a 2/4, it has Battle Cry. Whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until the end of turn, and whenever it attacks, you tap target creature an opponent controls. Very powerful effect here. Good top end for the curve of your aggressive white decks. Battle Cry will always be powerful if you get to play in Mirrodin Besieged Limited. You know just how good that effect was. And the body on this guy isn't anything to sneeze at either. It's going to block well, tap a guy down when it attacks, very, very potent, solid 2, very good filler playable for me. Next up, we've got ourselves a little bit of an in-joke for Magic, and this is Segovian Angel, a 1 white angel at common, 1/1 with flying and vigilance. This thing's pretty crappy without any sort of equipment or auras on it, so leave it at home now. If you're old like me, you get the joke. Segovian Angel is a reference to Segovian Leviathan, which I believe was like a 4 and a blue 3/3 Leviathan that had Island Walk. And the joke back then was, why is this 6 mana thing that's called a Leviathan only a 3/3? Well, as it turns out, on the plane of Segovia, everything is very, very teeny tiny. It's funny, I guess. So, anyway. 1.5, moving on to a card that is much, much better, I think. We have our first Planeswalker, Sarah the Benevolent. 2 white, legendary Planeswalker Sarah. Yep, this is the first time I actually get to see Sarah in all her glory. Mythic rare, 4 sharding loyalty. For +2, you get creatures you control with flying, get +1/+1 until the end of turn. -3, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Hello, Sarah Angel. And for -6, you get an emblem with, if you control a creature, damage that reduces your your life total to less than 1, reduces it to 1 instead. So worship on a Planeswalker emblem. Very, very powerful Planeswalker here, Sarah is. Gave her a solid 3.5, simply because, the +2, or the +2 only interacts with a certain kind of creature, and that's with the flying. And if you don't have any of those, it's just kind of underwhelming. Now, obviously, paying 4 mana and minusing 3 to get the 4/4 Angel is very powerful. And if you do manage to block with it and keep her alive for a turn, you can start plussing it and, getting in for some real damage there. But you need to be worried about, burn spells and things like that. So Sarah is still very, very powerful. It's a solid 3.5 for me. Obviously, Planeswalkers warp formats. And I'm certainly glad that we're moving back to a space in Magic where we don't have 4,000 in the set. So, good stuff there. Next up, we got... Oh, and potential token play for Modern. Black-white tokens. Probably going to get there. Next up, we've got Settle Beyond Reality. 4 and a white for a sorcery. At common, you choose one or both. Exile target creature you don't control. Or exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Not under your control. So if you've stolen it, it gives it back. That's a very important distinction, unlike something like Cloud Shift, which just pops back into play. And if you've stolen it, it's now yours permanently until it's stolen back or killed. Expensive removal, is removal. Let's just get that out of the way right now. And if you can pull the full 2-for-1, which you should always shoot for regardless of the board state, you know, most likely you will have this in a blue-white deck that has some sort of value creature in play already. The 2-for-1 is just absolute icing on the cake. Very, very powerful card here. You will always play this, and an easy first pick over some of the weaker rares and uncommons in this set. Next up, we've got Shelter, a very old card if I'm not mistaken. 1 and a white instant at common. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until the end of turn, and you draw a card. Pretty underwhelming. I give it a 1.5. It's good for, you know, occasional combat trickery, you know, getting to that last point of damage if they only have, you know, a certain color creature in play, and you can just get through like they have, you know, effectively like color walk, if you will. And that's about it. The card draw does make this a little bit better, but as it is, like I said, it's a 1.5 for me. Pretty underwhelming, but, you know, good in some cases. Next up, we've got Sisse, Weatherlight Captain, 2 and a white legendary creature, human soldier, rare, 2/2, and she gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. Very cool. Now, you can pay a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green, and search your library for a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisse's power, and put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Unfortunately, she basically has no text limited because the number of legendary creatures in the set, the odds of you opening enough of them to make it matter, I just don't think it's going to get there. She's basically a 3-mana 2/2, which is just underwhelming as all get out. I gave her a 1 just because there's so little she actually does in Limited. Yeah, you can play her, but that's about it. Man, I mean, yeah, I get it. It's a commander card. I'm going to build it. Planeswalkers probably for sure, but that's beside the point. Don't play Sisse Limited. It's just, she's not going to get there. Moving right along to a card that I think is super cool for this set. This is a very, very cool card. This is the Soul Strike Technique. 1 and a white gets you an enchantment aura at common, enchant creatures, and it gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. And when an enchanted creature dies, you manifest the top card of your library. Now, manifest comes to us from Fate Reforged. You take the top card of your library, put it on the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and you may turn it face up at any time from paying its mana cost if it's a creature card. So it's kind of a cool little bonus that you get off of this. And it's just, there's so much value that you get from this card alone. You know, obviously if they bounce the creature, you kind of lose the effect, but it's still very, very powerful. I do like this quite a bit. Gave it a solid 2 just because of how much text this is, and cards that have this much text are always good. So solid 2, very, very, very playable, very playable. Playable. There we go. Next up, Splicer's Skill. 2 and a white sorcery uncommon. Create a 3/3 golem artifact creature token. Now, 3-mana 3/3s are always playable, but wait, there's more. You can splice this onto an instant or sorcery. Now, splice is a weird mechanic. It comes to us from Kamigawa block, and you can probably tell just how many cards are actually popular from that block. For 3 and a white, you can splice this onto an instant or sorcery. As you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may reveal this card from your hand and pay its splice cost. And if you do, you add this card's effect to that spell. Very cool. So let's say that I cast Think Twice, for instance, 1 and a blue, and then I reveal Splicer's Skill, paying the additional 3 and a white in addition to Think Twice, 1 and a blue. So I paid 6 mana, I've drawn a card, and I get a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. Note that even though this has sorcery speed, I can splice this onto instants at instant speed. So if I just have a crap ton of mana laying around, I can start making all kinds of golems. And if you want to get really cool and make your friends think you're very, very smart and very talented at Magic, combo this with Winged Shards and just sit back and go, I'm the best. Very cool card here, though. Like I said, you know, 3-mana 3/3s are always playable. Solid 2, and definitely has a lot of flexibility if you can get this splice engine going. Next up, we have Stirring Address. 1 and a white instant at common. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until the end of turn, and it has Overload for 5 and a white. Overload returning to us from Return to Ravnica, which was the Is It mechanic, which allows you to pay an alternate mana cost, with in this case 5 and a white. You may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. So, massive board anthem. Basic card, basic effect, even basic art actually. It's all very playable, and occasionally that overload cost will win you the game. So pretty cool stuff here. Give it a solid 2 for me. Next up, we have the Trustworthy Scout. 1 and a white human scout at common. It's a 2/2, and you may pay 1 and a white to exile it from your graveyard. Search your library for a card named Trustworthy Scout. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. Don't worry, if you lose me, I'll be right behind you. Such an awesome flavor win here. It's a decent curve filler. I wouldn't play maybe more than like 3 of these unless I just get all of them, and then I'm just gonna be the scout deck, I guess. But it's still a very cool card, very powerful card here. Like I said, it's a neat way to sort of fill your curve here, and as the game goes on, getting value from creatures that are already dead. Pretty cool effect here. So definitely a solid 2.5 for 2.25. But just, curve filler best. Don't go crazy on these. Next up, we've got ourselves a Valiant Changeling. I love the art on Changelings here, on Shapeshifters. I never really noticed that before because I haven't really played with these cards before. But they all have sort of this weird, sort of like amorphous like blob feeling to them, like they're changing into whatever they need to be at that point in time. It's completely irrelevant to the game. It's neat. But we've got Valiant Changeling here, which is a 5 white shapeshifter at uncommon. It's a 3/3. It's a changeling, has double strike, and it also costs 1 less to cast 1 generic mana for each creature type among creatures you control. This effect cannot reduce the amount of mana the spell costs by more than 5, so it will always cast white. Now, the obvious and optimal line of play here is to play 1 changeling first and then play this for white, because obviously that changeling has 8 billion creature types and you only need to have 5 of them named. So if your opponent's like, hey, what are you doing? Just start naming random creature types like Squirrel, Homarid, Aladdin, and they'll get the point after like the 6th one you've named. So very, very cool card here. And obviously a 2-mana 3/3 with double strike is very, very powerful. It's a bit hard to hit on curve, but if you're able to do that and it's able to stick around, this is a very powerful card here. Give it a 2.5 for me. Very cool stuff. Next up, we have the Vesper Lark. 2 and a white for an uncommon elemental, 2/1 with flying. As it leaves the battlefield, return target creature with power 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it has Evoke, where you can pay for its Evoke cost, and if you do, it is sacrificed as it's entered the battlefield. You pay 1 and a white to basically put it in play. It does immediately, and you get its effect. There's a lot of very interesting combo potential in this set. There's a lot of really neat value creatures that have 1 and less power, I should say, in this set. And if you're able to blink this, ephemerate it, there's a lot of really cool things that you can do. And it's actually a solid beater as well for 3 mana. Modern, I'm sure there's some stupid combo that I'm not aware of. So if you want to explain to me in the comments, please do. Otherwise, we're moving on. Next up, we have Wall of 1,000 Cuts. 3 white for a creature wall at common. It's a 3/5 with Defender and Flying. You can pay 1 white, and it gains the ability to attack as though it didn't have Defender. This is a bit costly, but it does really have a good upside, is that it just blocks forever. There's not much that can actually beat through this thing effectively, barring any sort of combat trick. And then once you do have the board stabilized and you have things under your control, you can start paying that 1 white and start attacking with it, and it will end the game in, relatively quick fashion here. It's a solid 2, good top end for a more controlling deck, but I think you can find better ways to win those games than just this giant wall. Next up, we have got Winds of Abandon. Sorcery, speed, unrare, 1 and a white, exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle their library. Now, why is it referencing players and target creatures? Because this actually has Overload as well. 4 white to hit every creature with a Path to Exile effect here. So this is probably more leaning towards Commander, but there is some potential play in some control decks in Modern. I don't really think it's all that necessary though. And obviously, Sorcery Speed Path to Exile is still Sorcery Speed Path to Exile. If you have to overload this in Limited, I imagine that when you do that, the basics they get are pretty inconsequential. Hope they don't have a giant drop in their hand that can just kill you with. But very powerful card still, solid 3 for me. I will always play this in my white decks. And our last two white cards before moving on to the blue cards, we've got Wing Shards. 1 white. It is an uncommon instant. Target player sacrifices an attacking creature, and this also has Storm. an ability, a keyword that literally is the name of the Storm scale, which indicates how likely a keyword in Magic is likely to return. And Storm happens to be at the very top of that, meaning that it is so unlikely to return, it might as well not exist anymore. This was a mistake on Wizards' parts, if you ask me. But anyway, Wing Shards is an uncommon instant with Storm, so when you cast this spell, you copy it. For each spell cast before it this turn, you may choose new targets for the copies. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to get really cute with this, you can combo it with Splicer's skill and look like you're a genius, but otherwise, it's still a pretty neat trick here. Definitely a very skill testing kind of card to see how much value you can actually get out of this. So if your opponent, goes for a couple attacks, play some pump spells, you say, oh, I got you now, a little Wing Shard action, and just blow them completely out. So definitely something to be aware of when you're playing against white decks with open mana. Be conscious of just what you're actually doing and when you cast your spells, otherwise you're going to get blown up by this card. Very, very powerful, and a skill tester, like I mentioned, solid 2 for me. Edict effects are always at their worst and limited just because your opponent has so many options of what they have to sacrifice, but obviously when it starts storming, it might not actually matter. Next up, we have our last white card. This is Zal Fearon Decoy. 1 white for a 1/3 human soldier at uncommon. You can tap it and tap target creature. Activate this ability only if you had a creature enter the battlefield under your control this turn. I do not like this card. I do not like this creature fall mechanic they're trying to push here, because this really only goes into the blink deck, and you can take advantage of creatures entering the battlefield on your opponent's turn to actually get this thing going. It's so hard to get this thing off unless the blink deck is just that easy to get into and is always going to be open. I just do not like this card whatsoever. Give it a 1.5 for me, but obviously if you do get it in the blink deck, then you actually do have a lot of potential for this thing. But until that point, and when you're draft, super underwhelming. All right, now let's go ahead and shift gears here quite a bit, actually, into the cards that are a little bit more my speed. We're going on to our blue cards here, and starting off with a real humdinger. That's right. We have Archmage's Charm, triple blue, instant at rare, lets you choose one to counter target spell. Target player draws 2 cards, or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. This is an awesome spell for this format. Very, very versatile as soon as you can get over that massive mana cost here. Give it a solid 2.5 just because of how many things it can actually do. Now, obviously, once you go into Modern, the power level just goes up drastically here. I don't think this is a replacement for Cryptic Command in blue-white decks, but I do think this is an auto-include into blue moon decks that really only have just a handful of red sources of power fire off that trademark Blood Moon and then lock their opponents out of the game with all sorts of fun bounce spells and Karanoses and Snapcaster Mages. Oh my! Very, very cool card here. 2.5 for me. Next up, we've got Bizarre Trade Mage, 2 and a blue for a 3/4 human wizard with flying. It's a rare, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and then discard 3 cards. Wait hold, stop. Wait, this is Bizarre background on a creature. Did you guys realize that? Are they printing vintage level power on a creature? Like, what the hell? Holy crap. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, this card is actually really powerful. It's a 2.75 for me. The discarding 3 as opposed to the drawing of 2, I don't think it matters because this thing just beats down so freaking hard. And there's actually a handful of cards that we'll get to, actually want to hear in a minute, that you probably want in the graveyard before you actually cast them. So I gave the Czar guy a 2.75 here. Is it Prince of Persia? Is it Aladdin? Who knows? And once you go into Modern, this card gets very scary. I don't think this goes into Classic Dredge as we know it right now, but possibly some sort of a Dredge Vine variant. Might be very, very cool. This card is one to look out for. This is scary stuff. Next up, we've got the Blizzard Strix, 4 and a blue snow creature, bird, uncommon, 3/2 with flash and flying. As it enters the battlefield, if you control another snow permanent, exile target permanent other than Blizzard Strix, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, beginning of the next instep. Again, all the more reason to not take those snow lands out of the packs as you draft them. Even without the added bonus, which obviously you're going to be playing for if you're playing this card, the stats alone make this good. Flash and flying, already good. 5 mana for a 3/2 flyer, very, very good. Good to ambush with, good to attack with. And of course, if you do have the ability to have those additional snow permanents, this card just gets really, really nuts. It's a 2.25 for me, and I just give it a little bit of a knock simply because I don't think the snow archetype is all that good. I could be wrong. I want to be wrong because I want to play the hell out of snow decks in this format. So I'm going to leave, basically I'm going to put all like a little asterisk on all these snow cards because I do think that they are quite powerful when it all comes together, but how often that actually happens, bit of a stretch. Who knows? Next up, we've got the Chiller Pillar. What a cute little guy. 3 and a blue for a snow creature, insect, common, 3/3, and monstrosity. Neat. 4 snow mana, so any snow land taps and adds that snow mana. Monstrosity 2, if this creature isn't monstrous, put 2+1/+1 counters on it and becomes monstrous. Snow mana may be paid with 1 mana from a snow permanent. So, and as long as the Chiller Pillar is monstrous, it has flying, so a nice little storyline right there. This is a decent rate, even without the monstrosity. It's a Hill Giant is the 4 mana 3/3s that we all know and love. I'd be happy to play this, and if I do manage to monstrous this thing, it just gets that much better. But again, double snow mana specifically might be too hard to pull off. I want to be proven wrong. Let's move ourselves right along here. We are onto Choking Tethers, a card that's also very old if I'm not mistaken. 3 and a blue instant at common. You tap up to 4 target creatures. Very, very good. And it has cycling for 1 and a blue. Pay 1 and a blue, cycle it, discard it, draw a new card. When you cycle Choking Tethers, you may tap target creatures. So there's a little bit of versatility here in both the early, mid, and late game. This is a very powerful tempo play here. The cycling ability just gives it that much more versatility. That's sort of the highlight of cycling cards, that they are good at all points in the game, both early and late. Like I said, it's a solid tempo spell here. It's at its best if you can really capitalize on the tapping of all those creatures and get in for those last few points of damage. Obviously, it's where it's best at, but even if you're in like a control deck that just needs to tap creatures down for as long as you can, stabilize the board and take over, also very powerful. So a solid 2, decent little role player here. Next up, we've got Cunning Evasion, which is a 1 and a blue enchantment uncommon. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. That's weird. This is a goofy card for sure. This is definitely a build around me kind of card here. At best, when it goes into the blue-white blink deck and possibly even the blue-black ninja deck, I'm not sure where this actually wants to go. Probably takes a lot to start getting it going, and I don't know if you're going to have the time to constantly recast those spells. But as long as you're getting value off of those creatures, probably worth it. So like I said, put it in the blue-white blink deck once you have that critical mass of those creatures that have good ETB effects, and use this as just the engine to keep that going consistently and really drive the game in your favor. There's lots of card draw, scry effects in this format that all come from creatures, so there's some potential here. I need to see this one in action, though, I think, before I'm really a believer in it. And next up, we got more Power 9 cards, you guys. Sort of. Don't be fully alarmed yet. This is Echo of Eons, 4 blue, sorcery, mythic rare. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards, and has a lovely little flashback cost of 2 and a blue. That's right. That is a flashback time twister right there. One of the Power 9. Whew. Playing with fire here, Wizards. Come on. Now, as powerful as this card is, it's not very good limited, so I will say that much. If you can get it in the graveyard and then cast it before you pay that 6, because if you pay for the full 6, your opponent will absolutely take advantage of that reshuffled deck and a brand new hand, and you'll be in a terrible, terrible spot. I had the Emergency Powers card played against me in a draft, a couple months ago, and I looked at my opponent and said, "Do you really want to do that?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." I'm like, "Okay." I untapped and killed him. So, lesson learned there. Yeah, so if you can flash this back, it's obviously a lot better because you're going to have the mana left over, hopefully, to do something with those cards. Probably still not playable in Limited, but once you go into Modern, you play in decks like Blue-Red Phoenix, maybe some kind of control deck, taking turns. This card gets very, very scary, very, very powerful stuff here. Moving along, though, to a very interesting card, because it's a neat little throwback to a card, I believe, called Evermind, that actually had no converted mana cost and could only be cast by splicing. Cool stuff. But this is Everdream. This is a 1 and a blue instant at uncommon. Lets you draw a card, and you can splice it onto an instant or sorcerer by paying 2 and a blue. Already covered that, so we won't do it again. This is a pretty tricky card to evaluate. It's somewhere kind of in the middle, I think, probably like on a 2, I would have to assume. Just because it's so good in the early game, and because you can cycle it in a pinch in the early to hit those land drops if you need to, or find a removal spell. But later into the game, where if you are in that sort of blue-red deck that really wants to draw a ton of cards, all of your instants and sorceries just turn this on to some kind of monstrous card draw engine. And this could be one of the better uncommons in the set. This is going to be one of those I need to play with first to really get a good feel for it. But I am feeling that this is very powerful. I just need to really see this thing actually happen and, dream a little dream, if you will. Next up, we've got Exclude. 2 and a blue for an instant at uncommon. Counter target creature spell and draw a card. Now, think about it. What will win you a game of Limited? That's right. Creatures will let you win a game of Limited. This will rule those creatures as they're trying to be cast against you, that draws you cards. And obviously, card advantage is king limited, so this card is very, very powerful. 2.25 for me. I will always play this in my blue deck. Very simple stuff. Next up, we've got the creepy yet cute little Ikite. This is a 1 and a blue Drake common 1/2 flyer, and as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, so one card that you've drawn on your upkeep in your draw step, and then plus another one, obviously, gets +2/+0 until the end of turn. Now, like we've already looked at, there are plenty of ways to draw cards in this set, and we'll see even more than that as we move on here. More likely than not, Ikite will always be attacking for 3 power, probably pretty consistently into the mid to late game, and it's a decent little blocker in the early game as well. 2-mana 1/2 is always playable. Very, very impressed with this guy. Like I said, routinely will bash for 3 here. Next up, we have a card that I can only explain with an acronym. EOTFOFYL. End of turn, Factor Fiction, you lose. 3 and a blue, instant at uncommon, reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and an opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and 1 pile into your graveyard. Let's get this out of the way right now, people. You will never, ever split your opponent's pile correct. And your opponents will never, ever split your piles correctly. This card is one of the best skill testers in all of Magic. If you ever have played against you, you will just know that you're whatever you've done, you have made a mistake, because you will never know what your opponent actually needed. Do you put the lands with the creatures? Do you put the spell with the creature? Like, there's no telling what you're about to give your opponent. This card is so freaking awesome. Like I said, you will never split those piles right, and your opponent will never split your pile right either. Very powerful card, solid 3 for me, and I do have hope for this in going into Modern and some kind of control deck, but unfortunately when you look at Modern, you have to look at other 4-drops like Chase the Mind Sculptor, Cryptic Command, so we'll see. But yeah, EOT, FOF, YL. Next up, we've got Fairy Seer. 1 blue mana gets you a Fairy Wizard at common, 1/1 flyer, and as it enters battlefield, you scry 2. Simple stuff here. It's pretty underwhelming on its face, but as soon as you do have it in a blue-white blink deck, like that obviously wants to be in here, that scry will help you churn through your deck at a alarming rate, I think. And even though it beats for just so little damage, I don't think you're going to mind, because those chip shots in the early game, especially if your opponent's trying to get their board stabilized, might actually be worth it. So gave it a 2. It probably is a little bit weaker than that, but obviously any card that has an ETB effect goes up when it can be reused multiple times. So definitely keep that in mind. Next up, we've got a card that everyone lost their minds over. Like, this is the card that just cinched it for me that the set was going to be awesome. And this is Force of Negation. 1 blue, instant, rare. Thank God it's not a mythic. If it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Now, 2 very separate minds about this card. In Limited, don't get too hyped on this one because it isn't all that good. The card disadvantage is very, very real. But if you do need to fire this off at a clutch moment in the game, by all means do. But for the most part, this is no more better than just a 2 for Limited. Now, in actual Modern, I have to confess, I did all these notes last night when I was very, very tired, and my notes literally just say Force with like 40 exclamation points at the end of it. So you kind of get where my head is going at right now with that card. This card is very, very powerful. I don't think it's going to be like an auto 4 of every deck that like Cryptic Command is, but this is certainly going to replace some number of negates, Jovan Vetoes, maybe Cryptic Command too, you never know. But a card like this is just so powerful. I think this is as close to Force of Will as you can actually get in Modern without just going completely off the deep end. I could probably do a whole episode on Force of Negation by itself. Maybe I will. But not tonight, obviously. But yeah, Force of Negation, very, very powerful Limited. Just not as good as you want it to be, but once you get into Modern, this card is probably the very real deal. Next up, we've got a card that is completely ridiculous in Limited. We have Future Sight. 2 blue, enchantment at rare. Play with the top card of your library revealed, and you may play the top card of your library. This card is super sweet. Once you get this resolved, once you get past that ridiculous mana cost, this is going to utterly bury your opponent in card advantage. Getting those extra lands at the top of your library, playing extra creatures, and if you like get a clump of just something with spells, just go ham with this card. As for Modern, you maybe Lantern wants this. I mean, it's just more, inside effects effectively that just lets you do more stuff, and maybe it's too expensive. Who knows? I don't like that deck, but beyond the point. But for Limited, an absolutely powerful card here. Solid 3 for me. The only thing holding it back is that ridiculous mana cost. Next up, we have got the Iceberg Cancrix? Cancrix? Whatever, it's crab. It's a 1 and a blue snow creature crab, common 0/4. Whenever another snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player put the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Again, more reason not to take the snow lands out of your draft. You're going to need a ton of snow permanents to make this card actually do anything more than just mill the 2 cards. Actually, it doesn't even mill by itself. You need more than just that. So I do not think that this is going to be playable in Limited at all. If it is, it's a build around me card to the highest degree. Now, on the flip side, I do think this might have some potential play in Modern, where you take out all of your basics in blue-black mill and replace them with snow basics, and you pair this with Hedron Crab, and I don't know, maybe that's too cute, but who knows? Next up, we've got the Mana War, and Mano Man, is this card always playable? 2 and a blue for a common jellyfish, 2/2. As it enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. I once got into a Mana War battle with an opponent during, I believe it was a Masters 25 draft. I played one, bounced his creature. He played another Mana War and bounced my Mana War. And I said, really? We're going to do this? And he said, I don't know. And I played my Mana War and bounced his Mana War just to see if he would do it. Because I had better creatures in play, obviously. And he still bounced my Mana War. It was so bizarre. Anyway. Yeah, Mana War is a solid 2.5 for me. I will forgive you forever if you think this thing flies because it looks like it should, but it doesn't. But, you know, cards are very powerful. 2.5 for me. Always playable. Next up, we've got the return of a character or entity, thing, Cthulhu Monster that I was never expecting to see show up on a Magic card ever again. And it's Lage's Slumber. If you've seen Dark Depths, you know who Lage is. It's this giant tentacled thing. But for 1 in a blue, you get a rare legendary snow enchantment. Whenever Lage's Slumber or another snow permanent you control enters a battlefield, you scry 1, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, this text is so small, if you control 10 or more snow permanents, sacrifice Lage's Slumber, and if you do, create Lage, a legendary 2020 black avatar creature token with flying and indestructible. What the hell? Like, it's literally just more Lage comes back, you know, in this form every single time we've seen it so far. That and Dark Depths here. This is a build around me card. You know, the Scry engine is solid. As long as you've got a relatively high density of snow permanents. You know, paying 1 in a blue to scry 1 is pretty underwhelming, but anything beyond that is just, you know, great for you if you have the basics, if you have like the crabs and the other snow creatures. I can see this maybe getting there, but I really don't think that you should expect to see Lage actually appear on your limited game anytime soon. Solid build around me, but cool if you get there. Next up is a card that I'm so hyped for, but not at all for the format we're talking about tonight. This is Mirrodin Besieged. Literally, the set itself is on a card. How cool. 2 in a blue, enchantment at rare. As Mirrodin Besieged enters the battlefield, you choose Mirren or Phyrexian. Now, the Mirren side, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. And the Phyrexian side, this is where it gets nuts. At the beginning of your end step, typically I would think this would be on a upkeep effect, but it's not, and I'm not sure what Wizards was doing that day. Draw a card, then discard a card. Then, if there are 15 or more artifacts cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. What the hell? Now, unfortunately, this card is completely unplayable limited. There are only 15, I believe, artifacts in this set. No, there's 18 actually. And there is no way in hell you have enough to pull off that Phyrexian win con. And I don't think having the mirror inside is any better. Those tokens are pretty much irrelevant. Now, that being said, going into Modern, into possibly Affinity or Lantern Control, this card gets very real. In Commander, I'm super psyched for this to go in my Brea deck. There's so much to do with this card, and it just sucks that it's in a set that wants to be as powerful as it is, but you just can't take advantage of it within the context of the set itself. So, unfortunately, this card gets a flat 0 for me. Sucks, but sometimes you gotta do it. Next up, we have the Mist Syndicate Naga. 2 in a blue Naga Ninja. That's fun to say. Naga Ninja. At rare, 3/1. It has Ninjutsu, our first Ninjutsu card. It's 2 in a blue, and you may pay that to return an unblocked attacker you control to your hand. Then put this card onto the battlefield from your hand, tapped and attacking. And whenever Mist Syndicate Naga deals combat damage to a player, create a copy that is a token that is a copy of Mist Syndicate Naga. So this is like an army in a can all of a sudden. If they can't block the first one, if they can't block the second one, they're probably just losing the game outright. The only thing holding this back is that 1 toughness. It's a 3/1, but if you can get this off 1 or 2 times, it's absolutely amazing to just cascade this thing out of control. Your opponent probably can't keep up with this thing once it gets going. Very, very cool. And as soon as your opponent sees 1 ninja, they're thinking, oh crap, I can't block. I can't not block these things ever, because there just might be more ninjas. So pretty cool stuff here. Next up, we have the Moonblade Shinobi, 3 and a blue for a human ninja, not just Nagas. Humans can be ninjas too in Magic. They are common. It's a 3/2 and then Jutsu, 2 and a blue. And whenever it deals common damage to a player, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with flying. That's exciting. So all of a sudden, the Moonblade Shinobi is giving fodder for the Mist Syndicate Naga, and all of a sudden the game just goes out of control because ninjas are awesome. Naruto, yeah. Yeah, gave this card a solid 2. Like I said, for the Syndicate Naga. Once your opponent sees one ninja, like they're that much more worried about all the other ninjas you might have, because aside for Mist Syndicate here, the rest of them are all common and will just come out of nowhere. And we're gonna get to a card here in a second that really enables these ninjas to just go ham. So Shinobi here, solid 2 for me. It's a little bit too expensive if you ask me for what it's doing. But like I said, once it gets going, ninjas really get going in this format. Next up, we have a card that I had to practice how to say, and I'm going to mess it up here regardless. This is the Onirophage. 3 and a blue, Squid Illusion, uncommon 1/2 with flying. Whenever you draw a card, you may put a +1/+1 counter, or no, you just put it on, not may, put a +1/+1 counter on Onirophage. The only downside to this guy is that it takes a little bit to get going, but if you are in that blue-red card draw archetype, this little cuddly guy is going to get completely out of control and beat down super hard. Very, very cool card here. 2.25 for me. Like I said, the only thing holding it back is just the fact that it just takes a few too many turns, I think, to be really effective, but left unchecked, absolutely a house and limited. Next up, we've got Phantasmal Form. This is a 2 and a blue instant at common. Until end of turn, up to 2 target creatures each have base power and toughness 3/3, gain flying, and become blue illusions in addition to their other colors and types. And you draw a card. I don't quite get why I'd want to play this card. Maybe I've got a couple of ground beaters that can't get through for those last few points of damage, and this is sort of like my last trick. It's not all that interesting. I gave it a 1.5. This might be better than I'm thinking that it is. There might be, a reason to want them to be illusions and some sort of shapeshifter archetype. I really don't know. Not that interesting. Moving on to Phantom Ninja, 1 blue illusion ninja at common to 2/2 that can't be blocked. And here is our super ninjutsu enabler. Always these unblockable 2/2s. I think Phantom Warrior is sort of like the original unblockable creature that's this one is in vein of. But this guy just enables all of your ninjutsu, like forever and a day. So I give this guy a 2.5 just because once you are in that ninjutsu deck, this card just goes absolutely just bananas. Very, very cool card. I might be overrating it a little bit, but that's okay. That's just fine. Very, very cool stuff. Next up, we've got the Pondering Mage, 3 blue human wizard at common. It's a 3/4, and when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library and then draw a card. They couldn't just give us Ponder back. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, this card's actually really powerful. An insanely good blocker. The 5 mana is worth every bit of it. Ponder's always playable limited as well. Very, very powerful effect. And once you start blinking this guy, awesome stuff. Moving right along, we've got ourselves Prohibit, 1 and a blue instant at common with kicker 2. You may pay an additional 2 mana to kick the spell. Now this is a weird counter spell because it's kind of modular, but it's kind of not. Counter target spell if its converted mana cost is 2 or less. If the spell was kicked, counter that spell if its converted mana cost was 4 or less instead. So it's got some weird modality to it. It can only, 5 and up, it's no good, but it's just such a weird little card here. It's obviously very powerful here, as the game goes later, it's less and less effective. But in the early game, you know, especially on those opening turns, I definitely think the thing's playable. I give it a solid 2. I wouldn't go to my way to play, you know, too many copies of this in my control decks, but still a very, very cool card here. And anything that has this sort of versatility to it in this format will obviously be very powerful here. Next up, we've got Reign of Revelation. 3 in a blue, instant at common, draw 3 cards, and then discard a card. Card advantage is always king limited. You know, if you go back and watch my other reviews, I will always highlight this point. Drawing more cards, having more cards than your opponent in their hand will always win you a game, probably 98% of the time, and, you know, barring just disastrous only lands that you draw. The discard, it's not super relevant. You know, things like Echo of Eons, putting that in the graveyard might be of relevancy at some point. You know, I wouldn't worry too much about that, but just for 4 mana to draw 3 cards and keep 2 of them, you know, it doesn't even have to be the card that you drew. It's just, I mean, you know, an excess land is just that much power in your hand at that point. So Render of Revelation is a really powerful card advantage engine, like I mentioned. It's a solid 2.25 for me. I would put this probably somewhere on par with a more recent card, Tamiya's Epiphany, which I've been very impressed with in Ward Spark drafts. So kind of the two, I'd put them somewhere on that power level. And if you're familiar with that card and what it can do for limited, I think this is a very, very close comparison. Next up, we've got Rebuild. 2 in a blue, instant at uncommon to return all artifacts to their owner's hands and has cycling for 2. Do not, under any circumstance, play this card in limited for whatever reason you think you might have. It is wrong. There are not enough artifacts in this set just to justify the targeting for it. It's just not going to happen. Don't cycle this. Don't sleeve it. If you open it, put it back in the pack and just forget about it. 0. Moving on. Scour all possibilities. 1 and a blue sorcery at actually, that's about some rebuild for a minute. Maybe modern playability, but you already have things like Horkel's Recall, but it's still bad. Moving on. Scour all possibilities. 1 and a blue sorcery at common, scry 2, then draw a card, and flashbacks for 4 and a blue. As far as filtering goes, this is pretty mediocre, and I'll usually go to my way to play most card advantage engines in my limited decks, but even this is pushing it pretty hard for me. If this costs 1 blue mana, you know, then we're into like Serum Vision territory or Preordained, but that's too good. And of course, the flashback is trying to make it up for the fact that it's, you know, 2 mana, but even then it's super underwhelming. Give this one a 1.75 for me. I'll play it, but barely at that point. Next up, we've got ourselves a little scuttling Sliver. There we go. 2 in a blue Sliver Trilobite. There's a fun word for you guys. Trilobite. Uncommon 2/2. Sliver creatures you control have 2 generic mana. Untap this creature. Now, it's really kind of underwhelming, unfortunately, that this guy is blue, because he's the only blue Sliver. And the Sliver deck is obviously going to be more red-white, very aggressive. Now, barring any Shapeshifter Changeling trickery, there isn't a whole lot going on here, so at best, he's just a 3-mana 2/2 that can untap himself and maybe the stray Changeling in your deck, but not all that exciting. It's a very, very mediocre 2. At least it's a bear, and not a very good one at that. Next up, we've got Smoke Shroud. 1 in a blue common aura enchantment. Enchants a creature, gives it +1/+1 and flying. And when a ninja enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Smoke Shroud from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. So there's obviously some ninjutsu synergy going on here, because as soon as you return one creature to your hand, it falls off and goes to the graveyard. But if you have the ninja to come in after it, you get that right back, and you've got an even more powerful attacker obviously with its effect attached to it as well. So this is a pretty cool filler card, and you can create some real shenanigans, obviously with those ninjas and shapeshifters as well. I don't know how far you want to go to play this. I would just hate to try and go for this, and my opponent just kill it in response. Then you look really bad. But for as far as, you know, cool tricks can go, and as far as flavor tricks can go, I think this is one of the better ones in the set, probably that we've seen in a very long time in Magic in general. So pretty cool card, and definitely has some build around me potential. And next up, we've got Spell Snuff. 1 blue instant at common, counter target spell, and it has Fateful Hour. God, Who remembers Fateful Hour? Raise your hand. That's just me? Okay, that's fine. So Fateful Hour, it was from all the way back in Dark Ascension. The number of cards that this mechanic were printed on that were actually played in constructed Magic, big ol' 0, if I'm not mistaken. So Fateful Hour reads, if you have 5 or less life, do a thing. And in this case, you draw a card. Now, I will play with 5 to 1 life in Limited. I don't care. If I'm not dead, I'm not dead, and I'll take this card all day long. But this is just another, long link in the chain of succession trying to make a tolerable cancel for Limited. And this one kind of succeeds at that point. It's a 1.75 for me. Not that exciting, but it'll play. Next up, we've got Stream of Thought, some fantastic Seb McKinnon art. A single blue mana gets you a sorcery at common. Target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. You may shuffle up to 4 cards from your graveyard into your library. So obviously this is going to be some sort of, I mill you, I restock my graveyard kind of effect here. If you've got multiple copies of this, you can maybe kind of chain them together somehow. But the real fun sort of kicker comes when you introduce its replicate cost. Now replicate is 2 blue. Whenever you cast this spell, copy it for each time you pay its replicate cost. You may choose new targets for the copies. So there is some wacky potential for a mill deck in this format. I would need probably between 3 and 4 copies of this card before I actually try to go that route and hope I can get to the late game where I can start firing off that replicate cost 1, even 2 times, for a whopping, 9 mana. But at that point, you really are hitting, multiple cards of your opponent's deck and putting multiple cards of your library, back into it from your graveyard, which could be more copies of Stream of Thought. Maybe it's there, I don't know. Definitely a build around me card. I might try this. Next up, we have String of Disappearances. A single blue mana gets you an instant at common. Return target creature to its owner's hand, and then that creature's controller may pay blue. If the player does, they may copy this spell and choose a new target for that copy. So this is forked lightning. I forget the card. It's an old burn card that basically lets you fork the lightning bolt back and forth if you have the right mana for it. More often than not, however, I don't think your opponent's going to have the ability to fork this back at you for your own creature, which is pretty cool here. So effectively, this is an unsummon with a little bit of upside to it. It's a cool little tempo play, and like I said, if this gets played against you, I highly doubt you'll have the ability to fork it back and vice versa. And if you do, you can have some cool interactions there, and it might also disincentivize your opponent from even casting this against you, and vice versa, actually. But anyway, it's a 1.75 for me. It's something all that crazy, but tempo plays are always going to be limited here. And next up, we have got Tribute Mage. 2 and a blue for a human wizard at rare or uncommon, 2/2. And when a Tribute Mage enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 2, reveal that card, and put it into your library, in your hand, shuffle your library. So the cycle is effectively complete now. We have Trinket Mage, Tribute Mage, Trophy Mage, Treasure Mage. I don't know if we're going to get one that goes and gets 4s and 5s, because we have the 1, 2, 3, and 6s covered. We'll see. I don't know. Unfortunately, Tribute Mage is basically unplayable in this format. If you want talismans, you'll get talismans, but that's really about it. There are better things to spend 3 mana on. I gave the Tribute Mage here a solid 1. There might be a little bit of play to this in Modern, because if you're familiar with Magic art, you would recognize that art is showing off Sword of the Meek, which incidentally is 2 mana. Who knows? Anyway, moving on. We have Twisted Reflection is a 1 and a blue instant at uncommon. And you can choose 1. Target creature gets -6/-0 till the end of turn, or you can switch target creature's power and toughness until the end of turn with the extra ability of Entwine, which is a single black mana. In this case, you may choose both if you pay the Entwine cost. So for 1 blue black, you get to swap the power and toughness and give it -6/-0, effectively killing it. In most cases, I don't think anything in this set can actually survive it. I could be wrong about that. This is a pretty cool, flexible piece of removal. Even if you can only fire off part of it, you might be able to get a creature, in combat with it. Very, very flexible, obviously. It's a solid 2.25 for me, and like I mentioned, the Entwined ability does allow you to kill basically everything in this set for limited play. Next up, we've got Urza, Lord High Artificer, a card that the collective commander community lost their freaking mind over, and I understand why. So he is a 2/2 legendary creature, human artificer, mythic rare, 1/4, and it has basically a wall of text. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. You may tap an untapped artifact you control and add 1 blue mana. And then the Coupe de Grace, you may pay 5 generic mana, shuffle your library, and then exile the top card of your top card. Until the end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana costs. So, in Modern and Commander, this card is absolutely busted. It goes infinite every which way, 6 ways to Sunday, up, down, left, right, backwards and forwards, through time, backwards through time, up, over. It's just, this card is ridiculous. Competitive EDH written all over it. Thankfully, in Limited, it is far less offensive. There are so few artifacts that actually make this thing scary. That construct is going to be maybe a 1 or 2 at best. I don't see that getting any bigger than a 3 or 4. X-Men, very rare occasions. And really the only thing that saves Urza here is the fact that you have that 5 mana Mind's Desire attached to it, which is very, very powerful, obviously, but, you've really got to have a ton of mana to consistently take advantage of that turn after turn. And if you're just sitting there and doing this on your opponent's instep and nothing comes of it, they're going to slap you. I would slap you probably, but, that's okay. Moving right along, and Urza, he's a 2.5. Good card, but not as egregious as he is in Modern and Commander. Next up, we've got a very cool card with a very cool mechanic. I just love these little sort of, throwbacks to yesteryear. We have Watcher for Tomorrow, 1 in a blue, human wizard, uncommon with Hideaway. This creature enters the battlefield tapped, and when it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library. When Watcher of Tomorrow leaves the battlefield, put the exile card into its owner's hand. So this is a very, very cool card, specifically in the blue-white blink deck. And what makes this so interesting is that even though it's a 2/1, you're not going to mind attacking with it because you put that card, into exile, and your opponent has no idea what you've got. Is it a land? Is it a kill spell? Whatever it is, are they going to risk blocking it and giving you that card? So cool. And so this guy's going to get through for, 2, 4, 6, tons of damage just for fear of what it might actually be. And if they do go for that block and you say, okay, that's cool, Ephemerates, or, any other blink effect that you can possibly manage in this set, and get more Hideaways while getting the other cards back from Hideaway, super, super powerful here. So I gave the Watcher of Tomorrow a very solid 2. It just needs a little bit of extra gas to get this thing really going. Very, very cool card. Next up, we've got Windcaller Aven, 4/blue, bird wizard, common, flying, cycling for a blue. It's a 4/3, and when you cycle Windcaller Aven, target creature gains flying until the end of turn. The stats alone give this thing some very good play. Give it a 2.25. Massive, massive body for a relatively reasonable cost, especially for limited play. Now, the upside of cycling this thing early on in the game is that there are a couple of black spells that get this out of your graveyard, a creature and a spell specifically. So I do see some relevancy in actually doing that, getting some value out of it, and then getting it back later to cast it for full value and beating down that way. So it's a pretty cool card here. Like I said, it's a 2.25 for me and does have a lot of play into the early and late game if you're in sort of that blue-black, maybe some kind of ninja bird wizard archetype. Neat stuff. Next up, we have Winter's Rest, 1 in a blue snow enchantment aura at common, enchant creature, and when it enters the battlefield, you tap enchanted creature, and as long as you control another snow permanent, enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. I like that this is common because, like I've said so far, the snow archetype has the most volatility to it because I think there might be instances where you just don't get enough to actually make the deck work. You know, like I've already mentioned, don't take the snowlands out of the packs. Actually draft them, because you'll need to take them highly in order to enable cards like Winter's Rest on Thin Ice and the other creatures that are in this set as well. For extra style points, if you want to like slap it on a creature, tap it down, but oh, I don't have it, it gets untap on there, make sure they get to attack one more time, and then I turn you play it then, and it's already tapped, and it's all style points. It's not that effective, it's not very smart, but you know, you can do it. This is a solid 2 for me. Like I said, you do need to have those extra snow permanents, especially if you have multiples of these. Like I said, I'm glad it's common, so you do have the opportunity to get multiples of them. And because they are so specific to snow, you might be more incentivized to pass them if you're not already in that archetype, meaning that if you are playing the snow cards, you can get more of them. So there's some counterplay to it, and again, I keep mentioning it, but the snow archetype is so, you know, so shaky, it feels like, but I think if it comes together, you might just have the best deck at the table. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. And our very last card in the set for blue is Fluster Storm. It is a single blue mana. It's a rare counter target instant or sorcery spell. Unless its controller pays 1, it has Storm. So, like Wind Shard, whenever you cast a spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. And I have a very, very simple strategy against this card. If you're drafting, or you're playing sealed, and your opponent casts against you, politely ask them to stop and call a judge, because they are cheating. This is the buy a box promo for this set. And originally I really thought that it was going to be included in the set, but according to the articles I've read on the Mothership, this card was added relatively late into the development cycle for Modern Horizons, when they already sort of solidified the blue rares and mythics, and there wasn't room for it. So they added it in as the buy box promo, non-foil only, smart. And yeah, so as far as Modern goes, this is obviously a card that people wanted to see play in Modern for a very long time. It's a sideboard card at best. You know, Modern really doesn't have the explosiveness that Legacy and Vintage have, where, you know, firing this off and getting like 6 or 7 copies of it is actually a very real thing. I just don't think it's going to make all that much of an impact. And even if it does, it's gotten to about $20, so it's not going to break the bank like it used to at $70 when it was first printed in the, I believe that was the Teamer Commander deck from 2013, which I forget what it was called. The one that had Riku in it. But yeah, that card was really $70. Pretty ridiculous. But yeah, for Modern, stick to your Spell Pierces. It'll be just fine. But again, if your opponent plays against you in draft, judge, my opponent's cheating. So, we're done. That is the blue and the white cards. Thank you so much for sticking it through with me, guys. The pre-releases are starting this Friday, so tomorrow. Unfortunately, due to schedules and vacation, I was not able to get this entire thing done in time, but throughout next week, I will have the red and the black cards done, and then we'll wrap up with the green, gold artifacts and lands, sort of that big mega episode, which won't take all that much time because there's not a whole lot of, you know, gold artifacts and lands in this set that we have to worry about. But yeah, so let me know down in the comments, what are you guys excited to play with in this set? What archetypes are you excited to play? Ninjas, Blink, lands in the graveyard, creature fall. God, I'm still so underwhelmed by that. Yeah. Do you think I'm wrong about a card? You know, am I just grossly misinterpreting something? Do you think I've missed an obvious gem in the set? Also, what cards are you willing to see and excited to see be played in Modern? Did I miss your favorite card in the set so far? Let me know in the comments down below. We'll get that dialogue going. And again, we'll be back next week with the red and the black cards, and then the green, gold artifacts and lands to wrap it all up. And of course, I hope you guys have fun playing in your drafts this weekend. The set looks super cool. Get ready, because I'll be opening a box of this set as soon as it comes in the mail, which should be next week, I think. So yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for watching tonight, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys next time. And I'm going to hope not to lose my voice for that video. Have a great night.